On my birthday, my son gave me a bottle of whiskey and said with a smile, "Just don't choke on it." I smiled back. But in the evening, my grandson wrote, "Grandpa, don't drink the whiskey my dad gave you." He told me the terrible truth. 2 days later, my son arrived, and I poured him the same whiskey. What happened to him next shocked me to the core. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel, and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The photo slipped from my trembling fingers and fluttered to the patio table like a wounded bird. There we were, frozen in time. Melvin at 12, gap-toothed and grinning, his arms slung around my shoulders after we'd built his treehouse together. My hands weren't shaking from age. They were shaking from the memory of our last conversation 3 months ago when he'd looked at me with those same eyes and asked when I planned to stop hoarding everything. I steadied my grip on the frame and set it carefully next to the stack of plates. 2:30 in the afternoon, July 4th, and I'd been out here for half an hour, arranging everything just right. The patio furniture gleamed under the Ohio sun, each chair positioned exactly where Martha would have wanted them. I'd even brought out her good china, the set with the tiny blue flowers she'd saved for special occasions. The grill hissed to life on my third attempt, flames dancing blue and orange beneath the grate. 40 years as an engineer, and I still felt that small satisfaction when mechanical things worked as intended. The charcoal would need 20 minutes to reach proper temperature. I checked my phone again. No messages, not even a happy birthday. Dad text from Melvin. Back in April, he'd cornered me in the kitchen after Easter dinner. "You can't take it with you," he'd said, gesturing around the house like it was some kind of prison. "Ellen and I have been talking. We think it's time to discuss your arrangements." His voice had that careful tone people use when they think you're losing your mind. When I'd mentioned keeping the house until I was good and ready to leave it, his jaw had tightened in a way that reminded me uncomfortably of his mother when she was angry. The bourbon glasses caught the light as I arranged them on the outdoor bar cart. Real crystal, the kind that rings like a bell when you tap it. I'd been saving these for a special toast. Maybe when Melvin and I finally worked through whatever was eating at him. Today felt like the right day for new beginnings. My phone buzzed. For a moment my heart lifted, but it was just a spam call about extended car warranties. I let it ring through to voicemail, and went back to adjusting the napkin holder for the third time. The red, white, and blue napkins Martha had bought last summer were still crisp in their packaging. She'd been so excited about hosting the 4th of July. Next year, she'd said, from her hospital bed, "We'll make it really special." The outdoor speakers crackled when I tested them, then filled the backyard with soft jazz. Neighbors were already firing up their own grills. The smell of charcoal and lighter fluid drifted over the fence, mixing with the sweet scent of Mrs. Henderson's roses. Normal people having normal family gatherings, probably without sons who made their retirement sound like a selfish act. I walked back to the table and picked up another photo. This one from Melvin's college graduation. Wendy stood beside him in a yellow dress, pregnant with Roy and glowing. I'd been so proud that day, watching my son accept his computer science degree, knowing he'd landed that job at Nationwide right out of school. When had things gotten so complicated between us? The ice clinked against the pitcher as I filled it with sweet tea. Martha's recipe with just enough lemon to cut the sugar. Melvin used to beg for this tea during summer visits, when he was little, before college and marriage, and mortgages turned him into someone who calculated the value of everything, including his old man's life. My watch read 320. They'd be here soon. Ella first probably, then Melvin with Wendy and Roy. I straightened my shirt. A crisp blue button-down Martha had bought me for Father's Day 2 years ago. The fabric still smelled faintly of her perfume, or maybe that was just wishful thinking. The backyard looked perfect, festive, but not overdone, welcoming, but not desperate. Today was going to be different. Today we'd find our way back to each other. I'd make sure of it. A car door slammed somewhere out front, and my pulse quickened. I checked my watch again. 3:25. Someone was early. I walked toward the side gate, smoothing down my shirt one more time and thinking, here we go, The gate latch clicked under my palm just as Ellis stepped out of her Honda Accord, her teacher's bag slung over one shoulder, and a wrapped gift tucked under her arm. Relief flooded through me. Not Melvin yet, just my daughter with her worried eyes, and that soft smile she'd inherited from Martha. "Dad, you look good. The backyard setup is perfect." She hugged me tighter than usual, her arms lingering around my shoulders like she was checking to make sure I was still solid. "Still here. Sweetheart, you're early." I was hoping it might be. "Melvin, he's coming with Wendy and Roy, around 4:15. She pulled back, studying my face with that teacher's intuition that missed nothing. "He texted me 20 minutes ago." We walked toward the patio together, her sandals clicking against the flagstones I'd pressure washed yesterday. The gift bag rustled as she set it on the table. Homemade something. Knowing Ella, she'd been crafting since middle school, turning scraps and imagination into treasures that actually meant something. Iced tea. I reached for the picture, grateful to have something to do with my hands. "Please." She settled into the chair closest to the house, the one with the best view of the driveway, and immediately started twisting her wedding ring, a habit she'd developed during her divorce proceedings last year. "Dad, I need to talk to you about Melvin. He's been different lately." The ice cubes clinked against the glass as I poured. "Different how?" "We had that discussion about the will, but that's normal for families. It's not just the will." Her voice dropped to that careful tone she used with difficult students. "Last week at Mom's grave anniversary, he made strange comments about time running out." I handed her the glass, my own fingers steadier now with company. "Honey, you're reading too much into MI. He asked me last month how long people usually live after retirement." "What kind of question is that?" She took a sip, but kept her eyes fixed on mine. "And when I mentioned you'd been taking those new blood pressure medications, he got really interested, wanted to know the dosage, the side effects, whether you ever felt dizzy." The words hit me like cold water. I lowered myself into the opposite chair, the aluminum frame creaking under my weight. "Ella, that's just he's concerned about my health." "That's good, isn't it? Is it?" She leaned forward, her voice urgent but quiet. "Last Thursday, I stopped by their house to drop off Roy's baseball uniform. Melvin was on the phone in the garage, and I heard him say something about natural causes, and no one would question it at his age. When he saw me, he hung up immediately, and claimed it was a work call about server maintenance." My mouth felt dry, despite the sweet tea. "Maybe it was work. You know how people talk. Everything's about crashes and failures." She shook her head, twisting that ring faster. "Dad, he's been asking weird questions about your daily routine, what time you take your pills, whether you ever drink alone in the evenings. And then there's the money situation." "Money situation? They're in deep, Dad. Wendy let it slip that they're behind on the mortgage, and Roy needs surgery for his deviated septum. Insurance won't cover all of it." She glanced toward the driveway again, as if Melvin might materialize at any moment. "I think he's counting on certain things happening sooner rather than later." The jazz music from the speakers suddenly seemed too loud, too cheerful for the weight settling in my chest. I wanted to defend my son, to find rational explanations for everything Ella was describing, but the memory of his face during that Easter argument came flooding back. Not just anger, but calculation, like he was already mentally dividing up the estate. "Ella, he's your brother, our family. People say things when they're stressed. Do they say things like, 'Dad won't be around forever,' in front of their 14-year-old son?" Her voice cracked slightly. "Roy told me last week that his dad keeps talking about after Grandpa, not when Grandpa gets older or someday after. Like it's already decided." I stared at the bourbon glasses catching the late afternoon light, those crystal symbols of hope and reconciliation I'd so carefully arranged. The photo of young Melvin seemed to mock me from its place between the salt and pepper shakers. We sat in uncomfortable silence, both of us checking our phones, both of us listening for the sound of car doors. The neighbors' barbecue laughter drifted over the fence. Normal families having normal celebrations without poisonous undercurrents. At 410, Multiple car doors slammed in quick succession. Ella stiffened in her chair, her knuckles white around the iced tea glass. Roy's voice carried over the fence. "Grandpa, we're here." She reached across the table and gripped my wrist. "Promise me you'll be careful, Dad. Please." I patted her hand dismissively, though my heart was hammering. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. You worry too much." But as I stood up and straightened my shirt, I caught myself glancing at those bourbon glasses again, wondering if I was being paranoid or just finally paying attention. "Game face on, sweetheart," I said, forcing confidence into my voice. I didn't quite feel. Roy bounded through the gate like a golden retriever puppy, all knees and elbows in genuine joy. "Grandpa, happy birthday. I missed you so much." I caught him in a bear hug, lifting him despite the protest in my lower back. At 14, he was getting too big for this, but he laughed and squeezed tight anyway. This was real. The love in his voice, the warmth of his embrace, whatever darkness Ella imagined, it hadn't touched Roy. "There's my favorite grandson. How tall you've gotten." "I'm your only grandson." He grinned, the same lopsided smile Melvin had worn at that age. Wendy appeared next, carrying 2 covered casserole dishes, and wearing a sundress that made her look younger than her 43 years. "Happy birthday, Silas. I brought your favorite potato salad, and that corn casserole you always ask for. You didn't need to go to such trouble, dear." I kissed her cheek, breathing in her familiar vanilla perfume. Wendy had always been the steady one, the peacemaker who smoothed over family tensions with homemade food and genuine kindness. Then Melvin emerged from behind the BMW, moving with careful deliberation. He carried an elegantly wrapped bottle, the kind of presentation that screamed expensive. His smile was perfectly calibrated, warm enough to seem genuine, but his eyes remained flat, calculating. "Happy birthday, Dad." He approached like he was walking through a minefield, each step measured. "I got you something special." The bottle felt heavier than I'd expected when he placed it in my hands. Premium wrapping paper, silk ribbon, the works. Through the tissue, I could make out the distinctive shape of a whiskey bottle. "You didn't need to. Mullen 25-year. The good stuff." His voice carried that forced enthusiasm people use when they're trying too hard to sound generous. "Cost me a fortune. But hey, you only turned 75 once, right?" I stared at the bottle, its weight suddenly ominous in my palms. 25-year Macallan.